What's up, Ego Hackers? This is obviously C.S. Joseph, and welcome to the episode many of you have been waiting for. But that being said, welcome to the Hypocrisy of ENFPs episode for the premium lectures. We'll have ISTJ coming out basically about the same time, so they'll drop before the new year. But yeah, ENFPs. Everyone thinks everyone thinks I hate them. I don't hate them at all. I actually like ENFPs a lot. I have the privilege of being friends with an ENFP, Chris Taylor, as many of you within the community are aware of and know him, and he's just honestly one of the best people in my life. And there have been really rough times that I've had, uh, even mentally, emotionally, whatever. And it's just talking to his extroverted feeling critic it's just so helpful. It really helps put Effie Child where it needs to be. It also helps my trickster understand a little bit more about reality in terms of, people being, things being interest based, what are all the various angles, etc. And it's just so weird that most people think that I actually hate ENFPs, especially, ENFPs or any of the specific 16 types. And the reality of the situation is that, like, ENFPs are just heavily babied by society. And because they're very babied by society, they end up really entitled. And sometimes the only way to get them to change for the better is to be as harsh as I have been with them. Don't forget their superego, which the superego is one of the best, if not the best type to learn from, short of maybe your pedagogue uh, type. His, or an ENFP, would be, so this would be like, Chris Taylor, would be an ESTP, which also has an FI trickster, also has a very harsh TI parent for that TE child. So the thing is, though, is that, like, unless someone is willing to destroy the ego investments of an ENFP is not going to change for the better, and it's just going to be stuck in their depraved comfort zone. And I really don't want that for them. And I have stated in previous lectures in the past how important ENFPs are to the future of humanity. Uh, they just are, because they really just don't give up on people. They don't give up on anybody, and I love that about them. I love how when they are they're FE critic, when they are aware that someone is a lost cause, if they themselves are the ones labeling somebody a lost cause, that person actually is a lost cause. That their FI parent knows what it's talking about. That FE critic knows what it's talking about. Definitely, especially when they're developed and mature. And I'm so thankful that, for example, Chris Taylor and other ENFPs in my life have not labeled me a lost cause, especially with a lot of the criticism that I get in the world, in the MBTI blogosphere, or in Reddit, for example. Reddit hates my guts. Sometimes even on Quora, the Discord server, Facebook. It's constant and never ending. And I got people like Chris in my life who have not decided or judged me as somebody who is a lost cause, because I am often, as an ENTP, which as most ENFPs are, we are often judged as lost causes. And I I I'm grateful. I'm very thankful for that, and it really gives me hope. ENFPs, they just have this thing where it's like, they can find any reason, or technically excuses, to forgive somebody, or at least encourage other people to forgive that person. They are amazing advocates like that, and because of that, they have the ability to generate hope And it's the kind of hope that can really set people free. And I I like how they have this overarching theme of freedom when it comes to their expert intuition hero, where they end up freeing people and freeing people's minds. Whereas me being an ENTP, I free people's hearts. So I would like to dedicate this episode to all the ENFPs who are close to me. Um, so like Chris Taylor, my daughter as well, um, who I love dearly, and I'm so proud of her. I still love my daughter. I still love my little girl. Another ENFP who mentored me and didn't find me a lost cause, which I'm very grateful for. Jeff Fisher, the ENFP, who, while his triple affiliate have gotten away and he has heavily judged me for my position on COVID-19 vaccines, for example, and he refuses to have anything to do with me, or I refuse to have anything to do with him because of how he's disrespected me recently. I still owe him a huge debt of gratitude as well, because I the long, long time that it took me to understand manhood, it couldn't have even gotten anywhere at all without him. In fact, without Jeff Fisher, the ENFP, I would not be here talking to anyone. Uh, and I'm very, very thankful for that too. I really don't think ENFPs get enough credit for the times when they actually do help somebody. And one thing that I've noticed, and this is kind of a hypocrisy, that ENFPs have to face all the time, is that when they actually do decide to help somebody for real, and they're genuine about it, and it's genuine, they end up doing it so well, it can even make the NFJs look bad. It can make FJ types really look bad. And I Jeff, for example, he did sacrifice for me. He sacrificed for me. He took SI inferior hits for me. I also think I've also I also think Chris Taylor. I know he has. I know he's taken many bullets for me personally over time. And I just want to say thank you all for taking those bullets for me. And for your FE critic to at least, as critical as you are over who deserves what, you still find someone like me who many other people in the whole world find as a lost cause, but you are still willing to take a bullet for me. That's that's great. I'm, you know, I'm I'm in awe of that. And it just goes on to show, like, I know that I talk, like, metaphysically when we're considering ENFPs, that it's like, hey, we need these people here for us at the end of the world because it's going to be an ENFP who's going to convince the creator to not annihilate humanity. And because the existence of ENFPs, humanity will always have a future. That's super mega important. But regardless of looking at, like, the afterlife, the end of the world, judgment, all of that, when you look at a day-to-day basis, because of the existence of ENFPs, people actually really have hope. And it's so funny to me to watch how ESTPs, for example, with their expert intuition demon, who, like, they are the destroyers of hope. Let's be honest. ESTPs, they destroy hope, right? Um, and they're the ones who tell the ENFPs how novel they are, how, like, superfluous they are. They also say the same thing for INFJs, but they really have that issue with ENFPs as well. And I, I mean, in some cases they are, but really in the long run, if an ENFP has taken the hits in life and they've also taken hits for the people that they value, um, then they're definitely not superfluous. This is why, uh, um, that's why, like, gosh, it's hard to say. Like, when like an ENFP becomes a leader and they got their little gang that they have, maybe they're doing some shakedowns or whatever for their drug deals and whatnot. Uh, the thing is, though, is that they just have die hard loyalty for their people. They're not going to be the snitch. They're not going to be the one who names names. And as much as like Crusader types can talk about honor, um, ENFPs, I have noticed ENFPs in my life behave the most honorably out of everyone and are capable of having the absolute best character. They really, really are. People think I hate them, but I don't. And I don't hate any of the 16 types. Yes, I get frustrated, and it's easy for certain frustrations to trigger me more than others. But that's part of me having a TI parent just like an ESTP would, as an ESTP would criticize an ENFP in a similar manner, right? So please, I ask the audience to not misjudge me on that. Please. You got to understand that my intention is to teach. It is not to obliterate, contrary to popular belief. But it is what it is. But while I say all these great things about ENFPs at the beginning, just like it is written in the Bible, in the book of Revelation, the first few chapters of Revelation, talking about the 7 churches, and then it said, "Yet I hold this against you," right? The hypocrisy of ENFPs. They're really great. They're really great at getting other people to forgive other people. They're really great at getting people to forgive them. So good at it. So good at it. To the point where they even actually they expect forgiveness. They expect mercy. It's like they can, like an alchemist, they can create mercy. Oh wait, that's right. They're a philosopher type. The philosopher type is an alchemist. Okay, it is the alchemist quadra, and they have their I win button, and they can transmute things into existence. And one of the things an ENFP can transmute into existence, folks, don't get me wrong, it's forgiveness. It's mercy for themselves or for others. To the point, and they get so good at it. They get so good at it in life that ENFPs expect it. They expect to be able to create that forgiveness. They expect to be able to create that mercy. They really do. And then because of that, they end up becoming entitled to it. Entitled to forgiveness. Entitled to mercy. Because they're just so used to it. Their SI inferior is so used to it. Being shown mercy, being shown forgiveness. And it leads to a very depraved perspective on mercy and forgiveness, to the point where they absolutely expect everybody else to be merciful and forgiving towards them. But they themselves are not. They're not forgiving. And one of the absolute best examples of this is actually in the Bible. Jesus was telling a parable. Maybe it was on the Sermon on the Mount. I don't remember in particular. But he was telling a parable talking about how there was this guy who was an ENFP. And this guy, like, all of a sudden... So they expect mercy, but cannot give it. But, like, in this parable, this guy, like, there's this dude, or he ended up owing a lot of money. Because, you know, ENFPs and embezzlement, that's kind of their thing. ENFPs definitely scrape off the top. You can almost expect an ENFP to always scrape off the top or embezzle in some capacity. It is very likely. It happens consistently, right? That's a thing. So when they and this guy ended up he ended up in front of a jury. He went to trial over it, and he was begging for forgiveness, begging for mercy, and the court showed him mercy. The quote forgave his debt and sent him on his way. A very powerful example of the power of an ENFP and what an ENFP is actually capable of in terms of the court of public appeal and using the court of public appeal and their mastery over public relations to essentially free themselves and get what they want, which is usually forgiveness or mercy, even though this guy is like a triple affiliated person. Well, he left the court, and then he went and all of a sudden he's like, oh, I need some money, and then he saw one of his friends, and this guy like owed him like $10, okay, and this ENFP beats up the guy who owes him $10 because the guy wouldn't give him the $10. Well, word of that situation happened, and definitely the rumor mill and the court of public opinion, and it made it back to the people who conducted that trial. And then they drag the ENFP back in front of the trial and be like, wow, you literally treated your neighbor that way? Wow. Well, they had him killed. He was executed. At least I believe that's how the story went. Or they threw him in jail. Something really bad happened to him. He was heavily, severely punished for behaving that way. And because he was being depraved, because he was being entitled to that mercy that he got, that mercy that he expects to receive, but he's not interested in giving it to other people because what? His underdeveloped FE critic, which means his super underdeveloped FI parent, really? Because his trickster function is in the way, that TI trickster. Oh, do as I say, not as I do. The other hypocrisy of, well, if it's true for me, that doesn't mean it's necessarily true for you, right? Because anything could be true, anything could be false, right? Yet another hypocrisy of ENFPs. And that's where that comes from, right? So this is one of the major issues I have with ENFPs. This is what can actually drive the depravity. It's like, oh, okay, they can't tell whether or not, or they think they get to decide. They get to decide that, okay, it's true now because I feel it's true. Which is yet another hypocrisy of ENFPs. They have this thing where they like to elect themselves the arbiter or the definer, or who gets to define what constitutes a good thing or the right thing, and in some cases the truth, because from their perspective anything can be true, anything can be false. It's all about what you believe. As long as I can make it look true, what does it matter? And then because of that, that becomes a skill that they develop throughout their life, and that skill eventually gives them power, and then it inflates their ego, and then all of a sudden they elect themselves the arbiter or definer of what defines the right thing to do, or what is a good thing, or even true false, because from them it's just all subjective anyway. And because they are the master of subjectivity, they are the master of the tree of knowledge and good and evil. For example, they're the master of what things look like, because using plausible deniability, for example, their ISTJ side uses that, which is another aspect of their hypocrisy. They end up thinking of themselves more highly than they ought to. Their ego becomes inflated as a result of that. And like, for example, I had an ENFP member recently. He's a premium member, and he started messaging me in Facebook Messenger, and he started complaining to me about, Chase, why do you always show up to your live streams late? I'm a paying customer. I expect you to show up at that time. And I'm like, yeah, man, I know. I get it. The thing is that like the audience is very forgiving, which I appreciate, and they have really allowed me to start late. And honestly, I have SE Demon and SI Inferior, and it's just not really. I really suck at performing. I do, and I consistently let down this audience over and over and over. I know it's a bad habit. I know it's a bad thing. I've been working to change and improve it over time, and hopefully this audience has seen me improve over time. But he wouldn't let it go. He wouldn't let it go. And it's like, okay, man, like, show me some mercy here. But he wouldn't. He would not. He's like, you got to understand, customers, if they pay you money, he was basically making the argument that they own me. And I'm like, no, dude, I'm not your slave. And like, Just because somebody pays me money, it's so funny how NFPs do this to me consistently. It's like, oh, okay, so someone paid me money for something. That doesn't mean like I'm their slave. That doesn't mean they get to treat me that way either. And I told him, like, welcome to the internet where I get to decide who I do business with and who I don't do business with. And I would rather do business with the forgiving members of this audience than the ones who are not forgiving, like yourself, right? Well, he got in a rage and he took off. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Good riddance, you know. Like, I'm sorry that you think you're entitled to my time and attention. Yes, I can take your complaint under advisement that we should probably go out of our way to be more punctual around here. But I have to admit that sometimes punctuality will destroy my creativity because a lot of people don't realize that myself as an ENP, it's really difficult to continue to deliver content and content and content on a consistent basis without inspiration. And punctuality kills inspiration. So if I am going to stay inspired, I need a little bit of leeway. I need a little bit of room there. That's why I'm explaining myself now in the situation. Yes, I get that starting on time bothers people, and thank you so much for putting up with it. I'm very thankful to all of you paying members who give me that room and give me that space. And I know I don't deserve it. Thank you. But at the same time, like, yeah, if you complain about it, I'll hear you. And yes, we are working to make it better. It is a journey of improvement. I can't make guarantees right now. Not yet. And some of you know exactly what's going on in my life, and some of you do not. But for those of you that don't know what's going on in my life, if you knew what I deal with on a day-to-day basis within my life and all of my personal struggles outside of this work, etc., you'd probably understand me a little bit more where I'm coming from and would perhaps be a little bit more merciful in that regard. I'm doing the best I can. But the best I can was not good enough for this ENFP's FE critic. I'm like, okay, fine. That's fine. But, hey, like, don't expect me to be merciful to you because you're definitely not showing me mercy for some reason. I don't understand why. And this guy, within this conversation, literally elected himself the arbiter or the definer of what constitutes a good thing or the right thing. And I'm like, look, those principles that you have there, I get it, but that principle is not a one-size-all principle. That principle works for you and your businesses and how you do, how you do your approaches, but that doesn't always work for me. Okay, and the thing is that I can't be sacrificing myself on a day-to-day basis to the audience because then I won't even show up anymore. You see what I'm saying, folks? If I really, really am punctual, it's going to destroy me because it's just going to, I'll be stuck in my shadow even more. I'll even get closer to the demon. Like, I'll be even harsher than usual. Like, it would be horrible. I have to have some aspect of flexibility within the schedule. Obviously, as time goes on and we add more people to the team and we're growing, that problem is going to be solved. But after a while, like, it just gets to a point where, all I can do is just be thankful for this audience and everything that they've done. But, hey, the court of public opinion would tend to agree with this ENFP. And here he is telling me that I'm being a depraved fuck. And it's like, okay, I totally get that. But at the same time, I kind of don't have a choice. Please show me some mercy. But he wouldn't. And that's one of the worst parts about that conversation. So if this ENFP knows exactly who he is. So if he's watching this, please show me some more mercy. Thank you for being my customer. But I'm sorry, there's not very much I can do about it now. So, but yeah, those two areas of hypocrisy are like some of the worst things, and I think those are their core hypocrisies, in my opinion. And yeah, that could be done a thing. Although Chris Taylor did chime in with what what he believes, and he is an ENFP, what he believes the number one hypocrisy of an ENFP is. And he said, quote, giving advice they have never done themselves. Okay, That is the literal reason why STPs exist. STPs literally go out of their way to find all of the people out there who talk a big talk. And ENFPs, they're the fast talkers, they're the big talkers. It's always big with them. It's all that talk. Talk, 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 talk. It just keeps going and going and going and going, you know? And they're like, okay, well, wait a minute. All that fast talking there, but do you have any like life experience to back that up? That was, for a lot of time I was taught by like the school system that anecdotes don't matter. Anecdotal evidence is not enough. But then because I know STPs exist, STPs, the people that, in my opinion, like I look up to STPs consistently. I really do. They have their own weaknesses, but they're just trying to make everyone else strong, and they become strong when they make other people strong, and they are just these huge masculine powerhouses that I have been very envious of my entire life. I'll admit that right here and now. I've been very envious of them. And I've always struggled with my own latent, innate femininity because, and I've always wished to be more like them as a result. The thing is, though, is that if something so masculine as an STP really values anecdotal evidence to the point where they're actually willing to punch ENFPs in the face and get physically violent with ENFPs for not having any life experience, for the advice that they give other people, oh wow, maybe I should start valuing anecdotal evidence. And then I did. And because I started valuing that, here we are. Here we are doing this lecture, doing this business, talking about the science on a regular basis. It's literally because of what my cousins Mike and Nick, who are both STPs, taught me about the value of anecdotal evidence and life experience. But ENFPs, according to Chris Taylor, their biggest hypocrisy is the fact that they often give advice that they have never done themselves, which I agree with. It's why STPs are going out of their way to find the people who make the claims, but also have the life experience and the anecdotal evidence to back up those same claims. The STPs are actually very willing to believe those claims and actually perform those claims and do those claims, provided someone else has already done it and proven concretely that it has been done and can be done. That's all it is. But oftentimes the STPs are like, no, that's not actually what happens. They don't really have the evidence, or maybe they're lying, so they're just bullshitting. So from their point of view, because ENFPs are hypocrites and give advice that they have never done themselves, etc., or experienced themselves, they have to destroy that. They have to stand up against it. They have to rage against it constantly, and they do. That's definitely an additional hypocrisy that ENFPs have. So, oftentimes people go to ENFPs for help because they have that INFJ shadow. And if the ENFP is being genuine, they can end up helping that person better than even NFJs can. They just had that INFJ shadow can really rise to the occasion and do it. However, what is that? How often does that happen? 1 out of 5 times? 4 out of 5 times? It's very Pareto principle there, depending on what mood they're in or what they're going through in their life, etc., or how they're coping in life with their SI inferior, because SI inferior just makes this person, ENPs, just have to cope with literally everything in life. Quoting Chris Taylor on that, by the way, but like, the thing is though, is like, I talk about how ENFP is the most selfish of all the types, and yeah, they really, really are. I sometimes, people have heard me say that INFPs may be the most selfish of all types. I mean, like on paper, yes, technically, but what really, really can make an ENFP more selfish than an INFP is that their FE critic can just automatically, by default, decide that no one else other than themselves deserves anything good. And it's not so much the level of FI plus SI that's making them extra depraved and extra selfish over INFPs. It's actually the FE critic electing itself the judge over who deserves what. And ENFPs conveniently elect themselves the ones most deserving. Another hypocrisy of the ENFP. So yeah, this hypocrisy is basically giving people bad solutions while expecting and accepting the best solutions for themselves. sharing so like for you could use a distinction from Cain and Abel in the Bible, for example. Abel provided the cream of the crop, the first fruits of his crop in a sacrifice to God, whereas Cain did not. He just took some random animals and slaughtered them. Or no, excuse me. Let's reverse that. Cain was a farmer and Abel was the shepherd, I believe. And Cain's sacrifice was just, doing the bare minimum, whereas Abel's was a lot more valuable because it was like, the biggest animals, like probably the fattest animals or the most important animals were the ones that he sacrificed, basically. Giving thanks to God, as a result, according to that story, which ultimately caused, Abel to be killed by his brother, because Abel had favor from God as a result. But giving people bad solutions while expecting the best solutions or the best for themselves, or giving people, the scraps from the table while keeping the best for themselves, it is consistently, a very ENFP thing. And it's not to say that INFPs don't do it, but ENFPs absolutely especially do it. They always save the best for themselves. They always save the best for last, or whatever would be the best for last, they consume it first or use it first so that nobody else will have the opportunity to take it from them. And that kind of comes also from NI nemesis when that happens. And another hypocrisy that's attached to NI nemesis, which is another thing that just really, really bothers me as well, is because it goes like this. They like to justify taking extra from other people or from anything, taking extra things, taking extra cookies, it could be something as small as cookies, extra whipped cream, extra gasoline, extra money. It doesn't matter. It could keep going. They justify taking extra from other people because they worry about when the next opportunity for them to take will actually happen. That's a huge, huge problem. So, because of NI nemesis worrying about their own future, they end up indulging their SI inferior and their FI parent more, and allow themselves to take and be entitled to other people's stuff or other people's resources or other people's time, etc., because they're very worried that as to when the next opportunity for them to be able to take in the future. So they're just going to take a little bit extra just to hedge their bet for, the future, just in case, because they don't know how the future is going to go, because NI nemesis is worried about the future. And then you combine that with FE critic already finding other people not as deserving and not as valuable as themselves. So of course they're going to take a little extra too, just for that as well. And it just becomes this endless cycle of take. And it is basically a form of manipulation. It's absolutely ridiculous and inhuman. I hate it. It's one of the biggest things that I cannot stand ENFPs. They constantly take because of this worry, because of them finding themselves more deserving than other people. Really? And it's so interesting to watch ENFPs consistently play God, because like you have like their golden pair, the TI child God complex of the INFJ, but then when it and definitely the INFJ will play God with their TI child God complex, of course, but it's the ENFP who will actually see it through with playing God. They'll see it through, they'll take it to the bank, and it would be basically permanent damage to other people as a result, and even potentially themselves, when they decide to play God, when they elect themselves the judge, just like they elect themselves the arbiter and definer of what constitutes doing the right thing or doing the good thing. They elect themselves the decider as to what is affiliative and what is not. Oh, what a horrible hypocrisy ENFPs have. That's the thing. That is no different than a wise man claiming that they are wise. Because if a wise man claims to be wise, he's not wise. And the same thing that an ENFP claims to be the decider as to what is affiliative, that's how you know they're not being affiliative. You see what I'm saying? They're literally walking oxymorons with that behavior. It's so frustrating. It's so ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And Another hypocrisy, they expect, with their S sign fear, they expect other people to be honest, right? But they themselves aren't honest. Again, it's all about, it's not about what is true or false. It's all about what people believe. And as long as they're aware of what people believe, they don't have to be honest. Because from their perspective, if someone believes I'm honest, that's all I have to do. I don't have to be honest. As long as they believe I'm honest, I'm good. I'm a good person as long as they believe I'm honest. I don't have to be honest. It's not my job to be honest. It's not my duty to be honest. They're always, always shirking honesty. It just really bothers me how ENFPs shirk honesty. And like they like to tell everybody in the MBTI blogosphere about how authentic they are. No, no, they're the least authentic of all the 16 types, actually. They want authenticity in their life, but they themselves, they authentic? Like not even a little bit. And that's frustrating. That's not going to work. It's not going to work at all. That's ridiculous. So yeah, definitely definitely something that I would disagree with, for sure. So yeah, definitely definitely something that's not that great. Yeah, my hypocrisy, right? So okay, let's see here. For some reason I've been shaking around a lot and the camera moved. Whoops. That happens. Okay. So yeah, folks, like just understand, like, ENFPs are really, really great people. And with their being triple affiliative, yeah, they can definitely be good people. But the thing is that they are not exempt from criticism. They are not exempt from being held accountable. It's so funny watching ENFPs hold everybody else accountable and everybody else's character accountable. And this is the final hypocrisy for them. But they refuse to allow themselves to be held accountable. And they actually run from that accountability consistently. And then oftentimes that's why they get away with a lot of things. They get away with so much. And that's why they end up developing the other hypocrisy of expecting mercy, but then they themselves don't actually have to be the ones to give mercy. That's a huge problem. It's a huge character flaw. Yet they're the one who elects themselves the sizer upper with their effie critic of who has the best character and who doesn't. It's really frustrating. And so, guys, like, remember, like, I do these episodes specifically so that you can come to an understanding of, how to hold ENFPs accountable and catch them on these hypocrisies. It's very, very, very critical. It's not necessarily so that you can go out for you ENFPs to watch this and be like, oh, yeah, I'm going to develop myself. No, I'm doing these videos, like I tell everyone. I'm doing these videos so that people can hold you accountable, so that people can criticize you. You see, that's why I'm doing this. I'm doing this so that people can get in your face so that you can stay good, instead of being this wishy-washy tree of knowledge of good and evil, someone who looks good instead of actually being good. This is me trying to burn the lies away and save you from yourself through empowering others to criticize you and expose you for your hypocrisy. Because the more you hide your hypocrisy, the more you hide how much of a bad person you actually are, the worse person you'll become. ENFPs, I challenge you to go out every single day and be honest about your selfishness and your depravity, and actually go out of your way to expose yourself to others on a consistent basis when it comes to these flaws and bad habits that you have. That way, it will build within you even better character. But remember, that never gives you the right to play God. That never gives you the right to elect yourself the decider or the judge of what is or is not affiliative. Just because you are triple affiliative and the most affiliative of all the types, basically, no, that's not going to work. or one of the most affiliated of all the types. So, but yeah. Anyway, folks, I hope you enjoyed this particular episode, and I hope you definitely learned some important things as a result. So, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Good night.